Welcome back to another Productivity Like a Pro podcast episode with my dear friend Paco Cantero and our dear members inside the chat. Today we will talk about Apple Notes, a tool that we didn't talk for a while, but it's always present for us, especially when we are in the Inner Circle cohort program and we're talking to our members there in the coaching. Many of you are using Apple Notes, and we realize a pattern going through the Inner Circle cohorts, how the use of Apple Notes changes throughout the cohort. Right, Paco?
Yeah, it's true.
So when you go to the YouTube channel and you go to the past, there are loads of handwriting note-taking videos that I made in 2018, 2019, when the iPad was a new thing and the Apple Pencil was there, and amazing times, for sure. Because there was not much more about digital note-taking that you were able to use. And it was the logical next step, going from a paper notebook to a digital device where you can do handwriting and make your handwriting searchable. And that's something I keep repeating it when we talk about Remarkable, and all the people telling me Remarkable is awesome for distraction-free note-taking. You still cannot search your handwriting on the Remarkable. And therefore, to me, this is a digital piece of paper. It's nothing else. And what we mean by that, that's something we want to discuss today, because it's all about what do you do with the information that you capture in these devices. And today we focus on Apple Notes, because Apple Notes kept evolving over the time, catching up with tools like GoodNotes and Notability and the other alternatives. And it is so easy to access if you're in a Apple universe, in the Apple ecosystem. You can access your Apple Notes from your Mac, from the iPad. I think even on your Apple Watch, you can have a widget where you see the last note and things like that. Many things. Also, it is the quickest to access note system on the iPad, as you just have to tap with your Apple Pencil on the standby screen of your iPad, and it immediately opens up your daily notes or new note, things like that. So this makes it very easy to quickly capture things. So if you don't have a piece of paper, tap on your iPad and start writing. So these are all amazing things. But with great power comes great responsibility. And capturing everything that you have on mind all in one tool, there might be some downsides of it.
Paperless movement, your productivity, your way.
So what we see with our Inner Circle members, they started using Apple Notes for exactly that reason. They are on the edge to technology where they just want to get started digitizing, and they want to preserve their physical habits, the physical note-taking habits they're used to. And this is, again, helpful, right? As I said, as your notes become searchable, it's already easier to find information than it was on paper. But the digital world has in the meantime so much more to offer, with all the tools coming out, starting with Rome Research back then, and then Notion, and now with Tana, and many more complex note-taking and personal knowledge management systems that allow you to cross-connect information, but to also quicker organize it. And to get to the point here, I was using Apple Notes and many handwriting note-taking apps for years back then. And then these new tools emerged, and I started using them in parallel. And there was then a friction coming up. So I started taking notes on the Apple Notes, but then I started scattering information in other tools as well. And that's where the processes are key. Our routines that we teach in the ICOR methodology. So you have the routine when you capture something in Apple Notes, and you have a different system where you actually organize your information. Then you should have a daily routine where you process this captured information into the final destination. And therefore, you have the organization advantage in the other tool. So the combination of these two tools makes sense. For example, if you have a PKM system that has a high friction point to capture information, Notion would be an example. So you have to always think about, where do I place the information? And if you quickly want to capture something from somebody telling you something on the floor chat, right? Then you don't know where to go, and you cannot tell them, wait a minute, I just have to open up Notion, and now I have to think about where to place this page. And then you want to quickly capture it. And that's the moment where you might want to write this down in Apple Notes. But you have to ensure to move it into the final destination. And this is where Tana comes into play. because Tana doesn't only allow me to quickly capture information at a speed of thought, but also organize that information while I'm capturing it. And it's very advanced. That's why we say it's not for everyone. We are saying avoid this approach to use Tana the same way as we do, because the way we use it is something that evolved out of this friction from processing information from the capturing tool into the final destination tool. And we are skipping now the step from this processing, from the capturing tool to the processing tool, to the final destination tool, and directly capture inside the final destination the nodes and organize this at the same time. And I think Paco does it exactly the same way, right?
Well, yes, the point is that in my case, Apple Notes has been dying little by little as new tools emerge. I kept using Apple Notes as an intermediate tool, okay, because a scratchpad for me that is gonna die pretty soon, okay, because I'm really happy after 1 year waiting for Raycast Notes. Finally, it has been launched, okay, Raycast, the launcher, additional tools, and one of them is right now Raycast Notes. For me, it's fantastic, because I was laughing a little bit when you were talking about the Apple Pencil, because the only use case for me is signing documents. It's so sad, okay, but because I left my last notebook, I think that 12 years ago, for me, the Apple Pencil was useless, okay? I don't like to paint. In fact, I hate it, okay? I like to write things down, to type it. I type quite fast, and that's my workflow. The point is that I was using Apple Notes because it has benefits, like, for instance, it works perfectly in any Apple device, including, for instance, iPad, okay? And the point is that the moment that I stopped using my iPad because I had too many beta or other applications that weren't prepared for the iPad, and then I moved into a MacBook Air, okay? The size is more or less the same, and I can stay on meetings using my MacBook. That was the moment that Apple Notes decreased for me, talking about use. And right now with Raycast Notes, the only use case for me, and it will die pretty soon because Raycast is going to launch the iOS application pretty soon. And I use it as a scratchpad on the go. Okay, that's how I use Apple Notes, because whenever we state something is because we have take things to the limit. Okay, in the case of Apple, we have even tried to create our old tool stack based on Apple products. It was an experiment that we made quite long ago. I don't know if it was
and
1 year and a half or so.
It didn't even last 1 week until we realized
we concluded that it was literally impossible. Apple tools are what they are, okay? And maybe sometimes you can use them as an intermediate tool, but the moment that you start comparing the Apple ecosystem, talking about tools with significant players, okay, in each of the different games, it falls short, okay? And it's the case of Apple Notes. For instance, if I compare with Raycast Notes, benefits, well, the floating window. When I want a scratchpad, I want to float, okay? Because I want to.
Can you just point out where you are at right now? So Raycast Notes, maybe for those who don't know what this is, Raycast is a tool that you can download that replaces your Finder, your search bar inside your MacBook, right? And there it is not only searching your content as you are used to, but it provides so many other features, including, I don't know, color picker is included, or you can arrange your windows and things like that, a lot of things. Then you have integrations of external platforms. You can have your Todoist in there and quickly create tasks. You can search your Apple Notes, for example, many things. It integrates with so many things. And floating notes is something that Raycast had before, something I used a lot as well, which essentially was just a post-it that you were able to pop up and write things down and then close it again. So it was an overlay. And I used this in the past a lot as well, because there are some times where I just need to save something that I repeatedly use. So for example, the accent color for branding, the hex code, is something I stored there because I need it in so many different places. So yes, I could have it in my business documentation and a quick link to this, but this was so much faster because the Raycast Notes overlay was always there. And what Paco now mentioned is the Raycast Notes. So they officially now upgraded this floating notes to a proper note-taking application inside Raycast, but proper note-taking application in parentheses, I would say, as it is still really just a temporary tool to capture things and to have things ready that you consistently need to use. So to me, it's a set of post-its that you can go through, and also for reformatting stuff that now, Paco, you used Apple Notes as well in the meantime. So these things, so just for you guys out there know what this is all about. So we are using Raycast for a long time already, and this was just one of these features as well. And before I let you move on, Paco, I just want to quickly address something Adrienne in the chat mentions here. Why do you recommend moving to Tana instead of Reflect? And
we don't do that.
This is really, take out this word recommend. We don't recommend these tools to any of you without knowing your specific use case. It's impossible. And as I said in the very beginning, we eventually moved to Tana to kill the processing between Apple Notes and the final destination that we use there. So Tana became a final destination. Before that, to quickly say that, before that, we had Heptabase only and Apple Notes. And then in my case, for example, so I was taking some intermediate notes on Apple Notes and I processed them into Heptabase. So there was a step in between. Heptabase was always more for deep thinking than for shallow thinking, and mixing both up was becoming messy very quickly. That's where we were always for the lookout for a shallow thinking system in between. So there are many things that you could use. Reflect is one that we recommend, if you will. If you're not too tech savvy, if you just need quick capturing and things like that, Reflect is great. Tana lets you organize your notes at the moment you're writing it, but you have to know what you're doing. You have to know the tool agnostic approaches. You have to know that Tana is still not publicly available and it is early access. It's not available offline. There are many things that come into play that we are aware of, and that's why we are using it, and that's why we are not able to recommend it broadly to everybody. That's why we teach the ICOR methodology, which is tool agnostic. And with this knowledge about ICOR, you can pick the tools that work for your specific use case. And Paco, getting back now to Raycast Notes, how do you use this? That's your intermediate note-taking tool right now.
No, the point is not just talking about Raycast, but comparing it to Apple Notes and see the weaknesses and the strengths. Okay. In my case, I try to avoid the trackpad. Okay. I don't use it. I won't say at all. Okay. But 80-20. Okay. I move everything with shortcuts, the windows, and then I love applications or tools that allows me to use my keyboard, okay, because it's how I don't stop my flow and how I can go at the speed of my brain, okay? And this is the case, for instance, of Raycast Notes, that I can use shortcuts so that I can create a new node, move things up and down, using markdown, that it's something that I will never understand why Apple Notes doesn't include. Now I found it was like an extension. Well, a guy there created this, but it was honestly a mess. Okay, it was a disaster in my case. It didn't work at all.
And it is only available on your Mac, right, and not on iPad. So it is just
it was something that I don't recommend, okay? But using Markdown inside there, also I like the text, how fast it is, okay? I don't know to go to or create a shortcut for Apple Notes. It's completely different. I know that this is something pretty personal, okay? But those are the little things that when you are polishing a system, and that's the current status for Tom and myself, that we are polishing and polishing and polishing, those are the subtleties that create the friction, and that's why the moment that we see that there's best player in the arena, then we bet on it, especially because in this case, we've been waiting for 1 year, okay? We are in touch with the founders of Raycast because we were pioneers using that, because we saw the potential and how it has increased, okay? The things, for instance, using AI, no matter that I keep saying that I don't understand why the results coming from AI when I use Raycast are so different to the ones that I use ChatGPT, no matter that I'm connected, okay, using Raycast to my ChatGPT, but the results has nothing to do. But the point is that there are a lot of volume of operations that you are constantly doing daily, that the moment that you find out a tool that is really fast is the moment that you bet on that, okay? And that's not the case of Apple Notes, okay? It's a tool. It was well thought at the beginning, and it's amazing how they are improving the features right now They are delivering new things. We are waiting for, well, Apple AI, that's another story. But, well, we will see how it interacts. And the beautiful thing about using Apple products is the super synchronization process, no matter the device. Okay, that's something that works pretty nice. But the moment is that if you want to really leverage your productivity system, it's quite difficult to stay with Apple products, okay, because they become too simple and too soon. Okay, the moment
and
that
too
you start
restricted,
asking for more,
too restricted
and,
when you have to work in other systems like Microsoft and things like that. Again, like you mentioned earlier, it is important to know the use case, also the volume, right? So if you have really an easy amount of information every day to handle and task and things like that, you can perfectly use, for example, only Apple Notes to organize everything. You can do your task management and everything, but then you are not probably the target group for what we are teaching here, as this is really being scalable with your productivity system to, if you climb the lever, incorporate, you get more and more work and you just do more of what you did before and you suddenly realize there's not enough time in the day. This is what we are talking about. And then tools like this are the bottlenecks. And that's something you don't realize. And on the other hand, we see here Michael in the chat. He says, I'm a 2-finger typist. Think my development goals are clear. And again, if you're faster with handwriting and while you're in a meeting and you're quicker to capture notes this way, then do this. But maybe even use a piece of paper in order to write this down. If this makes it better for you, your handwriting is better. There are many reasons for people, they try to use the paper like screen protector and things like that to make it as close as possible to paper. Maybe you should stay with paper and then use a sophisticated personal knowledge management system later on to process this information into the system. So the intermediate step that you do there might be useful, where you have the capturing process during a meeting, and then later on, the calm routine where you process everything into the final destination. And usually there are several.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about Apple Notes is that you can use it as a perfect intermediate tool, okay? Because no matter where you are, you can quickly create a task. For instance, there, if you're in the middle of a meeting, you are just writing things down on an Apple Note, you can create a task at that moment that emerges, and later on, you process that task. Also, it allows you to use tags, so it's pretty easy to create certain filters just using your intuition. The learning curve doesn't exist at all. It's pretty intuitive, okay? That's why they don't include these shortcuts and this, for instance, markdown feature and all that to make it as simple as possible, because that's the ultimate goal of this type of tools. And because of that, and the synchronization with the different devices allows you to have note-taking tool no matter where you are, and you can quickly jot down things there. The point is processing them later on, because the moment that if you try to create the other day I saw like a PKM inside Apple Notes, and I saw that and it was nonsense. Okay, it was a nonsense from my point of view, because it was quite complicated, because you are trying to enhance a tool that hasn't been developed with that purpose. And that's what we always say, try to find out the purpose of a tool, why it was designed, what the owners, the founders, the team wanted to develop. And then based on those strengths, you start using and enhancing that tool to your workflow, if that's the case. Because the moment that we try to force the things, we see that everything will fall through the cracks, because it's impossible. Okay, it's like it was a chaotic thing talking about Todoist, creating for everything, creating connection between big goals and tasks, but project management. But what the heck? It was a post of I don't know how many pages explaining how to create an amazing one tool for everything, just using Todoist, a note-taking tool. But what the heck? A note-taking tool Todoist because it has a description field in an object? That doesn't make any sense. Those are the things
it's
that
the same.
It's pausing the things.
There's another example,
purpose.
The video from Tiago Forte from Building a Second Brain. He was talking to a Microsoft employee and he mastered OneNote and amazing setup and things like that. We looked into this. How do I say that? When people tell us, and we just saw today a comment about this, why should I use so many tools as you do? It is so complex. And then you try to force a tool that is not built for certain purposes to do something and not calling it complex, just so you can stay in a safe zone, because you're in a tool that, like Apple Notes, right? Making a PKM and task management out of Apple Notes. This is working. and you have to study what this person created there in order to understand, which is probably very rigid because he or she built this for their specific use cases. So it might not work anyway for your specific use case. You're not only doing additional work to setting this up, but also you're not leveraging what is out there properly. And there are so many discussions going on right now on YouTube also about paid versus free apps, right? I published a YouTube video about this, and I said one thing was that people don't want to pay for cloud storage, right? So they rather want to store it locally, and this comes with the danger that you lose the files. And then I see the comments like, well, no problem, you just have to set up a NAS. And then it's very quickly that you make a server. In no time you have this. And if you have any trouble, well, you can book people like me who will do this for me. And I think, how hypocrite is this? That, they force everything is for free. And I keep saying it's too complicated for the type of people we are talking to. The busy professional who is not that tech savvy or not even interested to get that deep. How can you try to talk them into something complicated like this? But at the same time, we have to educate the busy professionals that having a multi-tool setup as we have it, it's much easier to set up and to maintain than having one tool and trying to force everything into one tool. It is interesting story, and we really appreciate all the thousands of members who gave all this positive feedback and show that it is working, and it is so much easier than the things that they ever did before, that we know it works. Well, we know it works, and it's great to see now it works for you guys as well.
Yes, and it's also important to understand that by betting on this approach of splitting your tool stack into the best tools for every of your workflows, okay, obviously trying to use as less tools as possible, okay, in number. But the point is, it's the only way that you can really leverage and enhance and grow with your productivity system, because the moment that you just bet on one tool, you depend on the future developments of that tools, okay? But right now, for instance, let's use this example. Imagine that I was using Apple Notes. The moment that I see Raycast Notes and it perfectly fits my workflow, boom, I change immediately, no problem at all, no damage, and I have improved my productivity system effortlessly. And that's the main purpose of everything. The moment that you can perfectly jump, and the moment that a new tool, solution, or technology appears on the market, you can take advantage of that. If you are just encapsulated into just one tool, first off, it's impossible that one tool covers all the space of productivity perfectly, okay, with all the strengths and no weaknesses at all. And we can see it. For instance, there are huge players like Notion, like ClickUp, that they try to force the things to just one workspace for everything. And we see that they cannot compete, for instance, with planners. They cannot compete with task management if you want to quick capture and quickly organize tasks or speedies. They are not appropriate note-taking tools when you want to connect the things because maybe they are not visual. They don't have whiteboard. I don't know. There are many weaknesses. And we are talking about huge players, okay? I don't know what was the value of Notion. The other day I saw it and it was impressive, And the point is, not even those players are ready to deliver just one application for everything. So imagine, a small software company with 6 guys pretending that they are the one and only workspace for everything or one tool for everything. That doesn't make any sense. And I think that it's much better for software companies to be specific to one need in the market. Like, for instance, Raycast, it's a super example. And also, they took the approach, for instance, talking about Obsidian and plugins, they allow the people to create extensions. The beautiful thing is that as Raycast is a launcher, I don't care about those extensions. It's something that enhances how I work. But if they disappear, it's not critical at all, okay? I'm not losing my notes, my information, or whatever. It was just a feature that I can imagine that disappears, and that's it. And there are a ton of people developing extensions for Raycast and improving that product for free, okay? And that's something that it's useful, okay? Because you are not trusting on those features or something that it's critical for you. It's just something that if I have it perfectly, if not, I can perfectly keep developing my things.
Compared to Obsidian, for example, right? Correct. Where we have a lot of third-party plugins developers as well. But there's the problem that these are essential features that make up your PKM system. And therefore, if a plugin stops working from one update to the other, your whole workflow is doomed because it breaks your tool the way you build it. And that's something people underestimate. And Volker in the chat says 100% agree, tool stack is the way to go. And Michael gets it to the point. He says, I get it. It's like trying to cook a 5-course meal with just one pot. Impossible. You need more instruments to cook the perfect meal. And with this, my friends, we will end this podcast because there's nothing more to add here. And we cannot wait to catch you up next week with the next question. Have a good one.
See you guys. Thank you so much.